I was asked about word counts and struggling with word count. I'm not sure if we're talking struggling with making your word count higher or making your word count lower, but I wanted to quickly address that because I also have struggled with word counts. My first book, the first draft of my first book came in at like 134,000 words. Yeah, pretty long. I finally, after many, many, many months of revision, got that bad boy down to about 90,000 somehow. And then I shelved it. But how I got it from 134,000 down to 90,000 was with cutting subplots, merging chapters, merging subplots, um, really big picture type edits. You can't cut a third of your book by just going chapter through chapter and editing by chapter. You have to look at the story arc and see how can I make this story arc simpler. And it's really simplifying things on the macro, massive level. Another thing is if you have multiple POVs in your book, you can look at cutting some of those POVs, really taking a look at which ones are necessary. Every time you add a POV, that's going to increase your word count. So if you're really worried about a high word count, again, look at your overall structure, see how you can simplify that, and then look at how many POVs you have and make sure that all of them are necessary. If you can cut any of them, then that's going to dramatically decrease your word count. If we're talking about the low end, trying to go higher, I've also done this because my second novel came in at about 65,000 words. So I went from one extreme to the next extreme. And 65 is pretty healthy, but it could get bolstered a little bit, especially since I am writing speculative fiction. So how I got that up to about 75,000 is through adding more quiet moments. Honestly, I think I plotted my second novel really, really tightly. So the plot was moving at a nice clip, but because of that, there were less moments for you to slow down and kind of connect with those characters. Also, bolstering the romantic subplot really helped me to get up a little bit higher, just adding more scenes that aren't just moving the plot forward, but are moving the romance forward. Adding more trial fail cycles is something that can also help increase a low word count. And what I mean by trial fail cycles is if your main character goes into a situation with a goal in mind and they accomplish it with very little setbacks, or if their initial plan works, very rarely, if a character's plan works the first time, then it's not gonna feel believable. So adding more obstacles and then bolstering those character moments, those quiet moments, those romantic moments, those are some ways that you can look to increase a low word count. So queries and synopsises. My fellow mentor, Rebecca Yaros, did an amazing video on queries, so you should go watch that first because I don't want to cover anything that she already has. As she said, queries suck. We all have to we all have to write them. Even after you land an agent or a publishing deal, you still have to write queries. I've actually started writing my queries before I actually draft the manuscript, just because I find that helps me stay focused, stay on topic, if I already know at its heart what the book is about before I dive into actually writing it. But if you've written a manuscript and now you're trying to write the query for it, you're trying to take your manuscript and bubbling it down to what is my story really, really about, then I have a few additional tips for you. As Rebecca mentioned, character conflict stakes. I also love queries that are built kind of around that model, like 3-paragraph, 2-paragraph model, starting with character, moving into conflict, which is basically your inciting incident, and then ending with those stakes. What happens if my character fails? I love starting with character because characters are why I read. If I care about your character, if you make me care about your character, then I'm going to care about what happens to them. So character for me is the strongest hook. I was asked to talk about voice in queries, and really that's one of the more advanced query writing techniques. Once you're able to boil your plot down, adding that voice is really what can take your query to the next level. And really, it comes down to word choice and sentence cadence. Because you only have a limited amount of real estate to work with, making sure that every word counts is vitally important. So examine each word. Make sure that the words that you're using in your query are words that your main character would use. And similarly, if your character talks in choppy, more staccato sentences, bring that into your query. If your character talks in longer, more run-on, complicated sentences, then bring that into your query. And that's what we mean when we talk about voice. Your style in your query matches the style that we're going to see in the pages.